Good morning. It's Sunday, October 16th, and I've been reading several different articles in the last day or so because I'm concerned with the situation that's going on in this country. And I keep ranting about the situation in this country. And today I want to talk about whether or not we're on the verge of a civil war. And I've come to the conclusion about asking that question because I notice several reports that indicate that since the beginning of the pandemic, sales of guns have risen significantly in this country. Now, these guns are not being sold to people who belong to militias or other organizations that from time to time threaten our government. These guns are being sold to individuals who are worried about their safety in general. It's not a specific worry, but it's a general worry, and they are buying guns, and gun sales have gone up. So I am wondering if all the proliferation of guns would make it easier for us to have a civil war. Seems like to me that a lot of people would be prepared to step to the fight. But I'm wavering on that. And maybe it's just because of these gun sales that I've come to this conclusion that we're on the verge. But not significantly on the verge. Although the state of Texas did threaten to secede from the Union at some point recently, and if it was up to me, I would give them a pass. I would allow them to secede, because in my mind, Texas is not a very good state. I don't have a problem with disassociating the United States from Texas. But aside from that, when you look at the situation, you recognize the fact that there are red states and there are blue states. But there's no cohesion between these states, except that they're all trying to protect their own interests. And by that I mean they're trying to protect their jobs. The politicians in those states are not really concerned with the welfare of the total federal institution called the United States of America. They're concerned about their particular state. And they are concerned to a point that they have ridiculous rules and regulations that they are trying to put into effect that affect the entire country. Those rules and regulations are basically all of the nonsense and all of the work that is being put into eliminating populations from being able to vote. Now, does that signal that we would have a civil war? Maybe, but these same states contain militias, individual groups of people, right-wing extremists with guns, and training camps. And there are even right-wing religious institutions that are in favor of right-wing philosophies, and they preach it from the pulpit, along with whatever their religion is. They will preach these right-wing philosophies, and that adds to the cycle of people who might be interested in having a civil war. So when you look at the United States, and you see all of these disparate regions and militias, you must recognize one thing, that in order to have a civil war, you have to have cohesion. All of these groups have to somehow or other come together, right? Even though in this country we have huge segments of inequality and racial conflict and environmental destruction, we do not have a unified national group that is willing to put together what's needed in a civil war. If you look at the Civil War, you had a group of southern states that banded together because of tensions in the U.S. over states' rights and the westward expansion. And of course slavery was in the mix. The slave states objected to the United States, to the federal government, banning the expansion into regions that would continue the act of having slaves. The federal government did not want to admit any more slave states to the Union, and this upset the southern states. along with economic and social differences between the North and the South. And states' rights versus federal rights was a big issue. Those two issues were probably bigger than slavery itself. But no matter what the cause was, there was a unification in the South. And that's what we are missing in this country right now. We have hundreds of right-wing organizations, but they are not linked together. We have red states, but they are not really unified. So it's the unification that occurred during the Civil War that caused the Civil War in the first place. That the southern states were fed up with the federal government. That may be the case right now, but it's not a unified federal, because the states that would possibly join in the Civil War have much more to lose than they probably did in the 1860s. So while I think we have this turmoil in the United States, and everybody talks about the Civil War, I don't think it's going to happen for a long time. I think there has to be a unification taking part on those that think to the right, because we've got several, as I said before, 100 right-wing organizations and churches and everything that haven't gotten together. They preach a lot of the same nonsense, but they haven't coalesced into something like the southern states did in the 1860s. So what we have really is a philosophical civil war going on in this country. That's what we really have right now, a philosophical social war. Those who believe in the right-leaning philosophies that seem to be expressed in very high places. One of those high places being the Supreme Court. So I think we're in for an unpleasant period of time. And I don't know how long it's going to last. But I don't think it's going to come down to a true civil war with weapons. It may be a battle of the minds. It may be a battle of civil rights. A battle of voting rights. And let's not forget the gerrymander. That in and of itself could prevent a civil war. So I don't think we're going to come out drawing our guns anytime soon, for a while anyhow. So I'll leave you with those thoughts this morning, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.